In an earlier video, I mentioned a fundraiser that we had at the Newberry, at the Athenaeum Library in Boston, on the top of Beacon Hill, at which a wonderful novelist who wrote Stop Time, I forget his name, and also Tim O'Brien, it's a novel about going from Vietnam to Paris, and I think it's called Searching for Carpaccio. Maybe that was one of the soldiers that trekked with Tim O'Brien and other veteran people who had been in the Vietnam War, all the way to across Asia to Paris, and Robert Stone. This writer who wrote Stop Time had married a friend of mine. Who was at the Athenaeum. I mean, the Athenaeum had done beautiful flower arrangements, and glorious place to have a party. We had a great party. But we heard about this art exhibit featuring the works of our good friend Fran Morris, who did mostly landscapes and at this time. And she's an oil painter who lived in Cambridge for a while. With another friend, a brilliant photographer named Bonnie, at whose place on Foster Street I met Jonathan Galassi, who later became now is president of Farrar, Straus and Giroux, the greatest publisher in my mind in Manhattan. A friend of ours said that the owner of the beauty parlor on Newbury Street would be agreeable to the idea of doing a party there. And so we was going to invite some of our stars who published in Canto. And I knew of a very good composer taught at BU by the name of Norman de la Gioia. He was one of the honored guests. And I was thought of, I invited J.D. O'Hara, who wrote some stories and reviews for us, that taught at the University of Connecticut, where I'd done my Master's of Arts degree, using my novella Sister as the MA, getting credit for an MA thesis for that. And he had O'Hara had written a wonderful piece on Nabokov for the second issue of Canto. And Ann Beattie was a featured writer, whom we were very proud of having published a number of her long stories. And she was regularly publishing in the New Yorker, and also we published Joyce Carlos, who I would have loved to have had as a guest, but she's then down in Princeton with her husband, Ray Smith, whom I knew through a publisher's meeting with book sales forces for books, a group of independent book salesmen at the house of George Braziller's son, Michael Braziller, and his wife. I had met Ray Smith along with my friend Frank Janney, who had his company published Latin America writers, basically in exile because they were radical writers. Regiciones del Norte. I think he did Vargas Llosa, and another couple of very famous South American writers. Many of them were so radical that they had to really live outside of the countries, such as Mexico, in which they had grown up or mainly operated, and had to flee in exile to Manhattan. Um, I'll try to fill this in with more names from his list. I talked to his wife, Laurie, who's up in Vermont. Anyway, in Chelsea, Vermont. I then called Anne Bernays' father, Edward Bernays, who started public relations, basically, in America, and just to ask him uh, if he could help me invite, give my invitation as a message to his son-in-law, Justin Kaplan, who had published a great biography on Mark Twain and other literary biographies. It was a great success. And he suggested that as an honored guest, I should invite Justin, which I did. And he came happily. And so it was a great party. I mean, these were really promotion of the magazine or celebrations of the magazine in general, not especially specifically inviting well-heeled people who might afford to give us a gift. I mean, people like Landon Clay, who I just spoke also of in an earlier video. I read a probably the best political review, including in TLS, Times Literary Supplement today, of Henry Kissinger's book, World Order. And it got me thinking about another writer of a book called Global Jihad. And this is a man named Leroy or Leroy, pronounced in French, who teaches at the Institut de Politique in Paris. And this is an important book I wrote about, an essay about asking the question, should there be an informed watch group of informed citizens? The answer to which was no. I talked a lot about Leroy's book, and also about the interesting life of Jacques Vergès, who defended Klaus Barbie, the Algerian women bombers, and actually he married one of them. And he also spent a lot of time with Pol Pot during a period when he basically disappeared. He represented the Bader Meinhardt gang, and the very interesting material about him. It got me thinking that apropos of the idea of global jihad, that once Algeria, Mali, and these other African countries where like Al-Shabaab in Kenya and other groups, rather terrorist groups in Somalia, once these groups become really totally operational, we're talking about a whole world of terrorists. I mean, like I know what's happening because of ISIL in the war on Iraq, and the fact that we're bombing them is going to only create more young jihadis who don't know what to do with themselves, are not engaged in some kind of gainful employment or in a job using whatever knowledge they have of the Quran and Sharia law. But the wonderful thing about the Kissinger book is that he does deal with the most terrorist of the Shia countries, it seems, is Saudi Arabia, which does its own um, spate of beheadings just because somebody has, some woman has failed to wear the burqa. Uh, he takes on the whole fact of Saudi Arabia and the Wahhabi setting up madrasas and spreading jihad abroad, and takes on the threat of China going to war against Japan, whom we're really sworn to in our treaties to defend, especially having used nuclear weapons against Nagasaki and Hiroshima. We really have an essential moral obligation to, if ever they are actually have to confront militarily China, we must defend them, no matter what happens, with or without the continuation of the existence of our base on Okinawa, which has made polluted that island, led to horrible rapes by the soldiers stationed there on Okinawa at the base, polluted that all that land was because of the landing strips. The jet fuel gets leaked out, it goes under the surface of whatever it is, an airport base, the runways, and can pollute the water supply of that particular terrain. I began to see prophetically a world in which all these countries, like the African countries, where that group of terrorists has kidnapped 260 girls in their school, and we have no knowledge exactly. Those few have escaped. We have no knowledge of the girls who have not been brought home to their parents. What has happened to them? What atrocities? Sexual violation or whatever. A world in which the major parts of the world are jihadist, terrorist countries, like the Islamic State, spreading from any place such as Nigeria, which does contain many Muslims, although there are Christians there too. But many of these countries, like Mali, could be so strongly solidified in their jihad, and that this could spread across from North Africa all the way to East Asia. I mean, to places like Kuala Lumpur or Malaysia. And just to envision a world where terrorist groups flourish because and Sharia law rules the day, stoning of women, honor killings, and other hard things, genital mutilation, etc., etc. It's all seems very possible and ghastly. I'm now involved in these two projects, a project of putting up a sculpture in our garden to focus the eye at some distance from the house, the base of the garden, and also to create a modern an example of modern architecture using our two linden trees, massive linden trees, putting I-beams between the branches, or maybe cement in their crotches of these trees, and building, putting, you can just imagine the drawings of a thick black felt, with a felt ink, black ink, coming from branch to branch. There are 4 trees involved. They're very tall trees, probably about 300 years old each. And the 4 trees in a row on the ridge or the top of the escarpment, below which is a field with cows and sometimes horses, and into which valley, at the base of our hill, in Saint-Michel-de-Livet, in Basse-Lower Normandy, near Livarot and Lisieux, and not far from Pont-l'Évêque, and the seaside resorts of Deauville, Trouville-en-Fleur, Dives-sur-Mer, Ouvgat, and so that these I-beams or wood timbers, black umber, almost brownish black beams between branches form the bases of large windows or thresholds or doors, and to which stairways out of steel frames or wood would rise from our garden, the basis of the back of our house. There are a strip of garden planted with not only with roses but many other flowers, hydrangea, colored hydrangea, and other bushes. But these modern houses, this modern architecture, which is using as the basic pillars on which they're built, and floors are suspended between these huge circular foundation um, parts of the house, rising up about 300 feet, or 50 to 60 to 100 feet, with a best view in the whole region, with ridges going out for 20 kilometers out toward the sea, which is not visible from the house or from this place. But the idea is not so much the house or the rooms that would be livable, public spaces, place for kitchens and bathing facilities, sauna baths, jacuzzis, etc. But the purpose of this is not housing or more room for ourselves, because we have plenty of room here in our manoir, which was called the Presbyter, across from the Saint Michel Church, which is a 13th century church. But to create a very large modern sculpture in view of our house, we have the views. We have beautiful windows in our kitchen looking out on the view, and we would see this sculpture, or we would be in front of our house where we sometimes have drinks for their tables and take the sun at the end of the day, or the sun for vitamin D during very sunny days, or the sunset at the end of the day. Have a drink there, where these linden trees, huge linden trees, and their branches are visible. But here would be going high up, maybe 100 feet high, with these either steel U-beams or I-beams or other solid structural pieces, would then create this half wooden, natural wood, and half architectural elements out of steel. But mainly something to look at as an artwork, as a piece of sculpture rising up into the sky, and through which we look into the distance, as into the night, or as into the future, or as into the past, the darkness of what has gone before. And here I conclude. Now, I seek my charming son to make sure this has been preserved, and my story of my father's career and life will continue, and there will be more to say about Paris and certain erotic figures with whom I've been privy to observe, whether for their beauty or for the possibility of affection from them, such as my piece called Riva, my father, Jacques, and Claude, his brother, Jacques' brother, and so Riva, Daddy, Jacques, and Claude, and me. Until the next time, until we meet again. David Landreth Van Vactor. Buenas noches. Or in French, bonne soirée, à la prochaine, for the next time. And we'll raise a toast very soon, maybe a glass of rosé, and say, à la nôtre, which means to our good health, to ours. Chin chin, and good night.